All right then, ladies and gentlemen, those were the headlines. But let's start with the big interview of the day. I caught up with S. Krishnan, the Secretary of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, in an exclusive conversation, the first conversation that he had with any media network. In fact, MEITY Secretary shares key priorities of the government in the IT space for the year 2025 and how the ministry is actually preparing for Trump 2.0 administration. How is it looking at investments in the semicon space and what are going to be its priorities with respect to the electronics manufacturing space? All that and more in this wide-ranging interview. Take a look.
If I were to sort of look at certain key priorities which we need to do, let's proceed one by one. The first and key priority would be to sort of put out the DPTP rules, which are long awaited. I think that should happen soon, very soon. And so that is something which should happen. The next piece that we would really be looking at is the real takeoff of the PLI in IT hardware. Many of the companies have started manufacturing in 24-25. So in the last quarter of this fiscal year, we should see some applications coming in for reimbursement and coming in for claiming the incentives. Likewise, a few big companies will also be commencing production during 25-26, starting from 1st April 2025. So we should see some substantial action under the PLI scheme for large-scale, the PLI scheme for IT hardware manufacture. We should also hopefully see, we are sort of pushing through the scheme for component manufacture, so we should hopefully, the ministry would be very hopeful that that scheme would be approved early and we should be able to move forward on component manufacture in the country. That will be a new scheme. Likewise, in the Semicon India event, which was held in September last year, the Honorable Prime Minister and also the Minister for Electronics and Information Technology both indicated that there would be further support for the semiconductor mission. So hopefully we should see the final contours of that scheme getting approved. So these would be some of the big priority areas during 2025. And amongst the achievements in 2024, I mentioned overall that we grounded 4 projects. Absolutely. But I think that really gave a sense to the rest of the world that India is a serious player in the semiconductor space, which is reflected in the kind of attendance we had in the India Semicon event and the kind of response that we received.
Yes, sir, absolutely. When you mention about, how India is being looked at by the world in terms of how it is really a trusted partner, and that, of course, gets further solidified because the Prime Minister, when he went to his Singapore visit as well, there were discussions around investments in the semiconductor space during his US visit as well. So technology has been a key arm of geopolitical discussions and diplomatic discussions as well. I want to understand from you, because you've touched upon so many different points about the semicon mission 2.0. Are there any timelines that the ministry is looking at, and could you throw some light on, how many new projects are currently, being assessed by the ministry for approval?
As you're already aware, I think about 32 applications were received, 5 have been approved. Some applications have been, already rejected previously. Some have been withdrawn, some have been dropped. We have about 15 which are currently under assessment, on which we will take a final view. And that should be met within the overall savings which we have, or the funds which are currently available under the ISM-1. So which means we will need ISM-2 fairly quickly.
Fairly quickly. Are there any timelines that the ministry is looking at?
You see, I mean, we would, ideally the ministry would like it as early as possible, but government, there is a process of consultation, interministerial consultation. We have to take all the stakeholders along. So that is whatever time that takes.
Yes. So what about the components PLI? It was, like the semiconductor scheme, industry players were expecting for it to be rolled out. Are there any timelines for that as well that you're looking at? Is there a concrete proposal that essentially...
Yes, that is at a more advanced stage, certainly. I mean, there are concrete proposals for both.
Yes.
I should be clear that the ministry in its mind is fairly clear as to what needs to be done. The process of interministerial consultation in the case of the component scheme is much more advanced, and hopefully we should see early approvals there.
So when we talk about semiconductor proposals, and you talk about, there are a couple of them as well that the ministry is considering, would you like to comment on the kind of interest that you're getting from abroad and, several other countries to invest in India, given the kind of push that the government has given to this program and, of course, the overall sector?
I think we keep getting inquiries all the time. We have companies from the US, we have companies from Japan, we have companies from Taiwan. We have companies from Korea. So a range of companies who keep coming and meeting us. There are also Indian companies who are looking to get into this space, so which is very, very encouraging. So I think investment interest is very strong.
So when you talk about investment interest, we're seeing a lot of geopolitical developments also happen, particularly in the United States, where Donald Trump, president-elect, will be swearing in as U.S. president once again in the month of January. And of course, there is conjecture in this talk that it's going to be beneficial for India, given the camaraderie that India has, with the United States. How do you really see investments, particularly in the technology ecosystem, to get impacted, to get affected by Donald Trump's presidency?
I think it should, it's been a fairly smooth ride thus far, and I see no reason, I don't anticipate any speed bumps there. There could potentially be some acceleration, possibility of some acceleration, and we would look forward to that.
And sir, it only helps that you have, so many people of Indian origin being picked up by Donald Trump as part of his, administration 2.0. But there is some, concern, I'd say, regarding the H-1B visa policy. Of course, Donald Trump has changed his stance, and he's gone ahead with Elon Musk's stance, saying that, it is skilled Americans skilled people that actually America needs. Is there any concern that you've heard from the industry on part of that?
The industry has not specifically reached out to MEITY. The software industry hasn't specifically reached out to MEITY expressing any concerns on this score. If they do, then we'll communicate them through the appropriate channels.
Okay. So I also want to talk to you about, in terms of, the budget expectations, for instance. Has the industry communicated to you what is it that they're looking forward to as part of?
Yes, the industry has communicated to us. The industry has also been invited directly by the Finance Ministry as to what their requirements and expectations are.
Okay. Sir, on the idea, on the issue of deep fakes, rather, I remember during the general elections, it was a huge issue. So many deep fakes came out. And of course, there was a view from the government that there might be a separate law to look into the menace of deep fakes, because it's not just an India-specific challenge, but a technology challenge. What is the government's view on that now?
I think if you ask me what is the present view of the government, we believe that deepfakes can be dealt with under the present law. Okay. Because deepfakes ultimately amount to misrepresentation. Yes. And misrepresentation is something which is covered under present criminal law and also under the IT Act. So we can act against any cases of misrepresentation that we come across. We can act against those under the provisions of existing law. The question is more technological in the sense of how do you detect a deepfake early enough? Yes. And how do you sort of ensure, and that is something we've issued an advisory on already to all the intermediaries, saying that you please label and indicate that something has been synthetically created so that people are not misled, right? The idea is if people know that this is not reality and this is a synthetically created image or synthetically created video or anything to that effect, then they are likely to understand it differently, right? So that is something which is called labeling, which needs to happen. And if there are any cases where there are misleading or misrepresentations of that kind, then they need to be taken down quickly, right? So, because the damage that they can potentially cause in a country like India could be substantial. Now, the area where the law provides a longer time frame for takedowns, for the period within which things have to be taken down. So sometimes that's a cause for concern because in the meantime there could be a fair amount of damage which takes place. So, but the good thing has been in the recent past we've had a fair amount of good collaboration with most social media intermediaries. I would not say all, but most social media intermediaries, where they have cooperated with the authorities and realized that not only is it a violation of Indian law, but it's also a violation of their own community guidelines and their own guidelines which they are required to have in consonance with Indian law. So although the statutory time limit may be longer, they have been prepared to take it down faster.
Right, sir. So,
but having said that, by law they have a little more time. But they are collaborating with us and they are cooperating with us in taking it down faster. But maybe in due course of time...
So essentially you're saying that in due course of time there could be a time when the timeline could be reduced?
Timeline may need to be reduced. But beyond that, I do not anticipate the need for a very major change in the law insofar as deepfakes are concerned.
Because the IT Act deals with issues of misrepresentation and misinformation. Exactly. So you, during the beginning of this interaction, you did touch upon the electronics sector, and of course it's performed rather well as far as exports and meeting domestic demand is concerned. Are there any targets that the government of India is looking at with respect to boosting those exports? Because the Commerce Ministry says that they are exploring different export destinations to expand India's base of exports. But do you have any targets with respect to particularly the electronics sector?
We do not have a specific target. I don't think we set those targets saying you need to export so much. But what we are looking at eventually is that we are looking at an overall manufacturing or a production figure. The Prime Minister has set us a target of $500 billion, of which $350 billion is finished products and $150 billion is exports. Is components. Now, of both of these, if you look at, say, if you take mobile phones, which is the single largest element, now India's domestic market is already near saturation, right? So which means that the room for growth lies in the area of exports. So there has to be export in order for the Indian industry to grow, and so we have to be competitive. And that is also important because we should only encourage and support those industries which are globally competitive. That's what benefits India's customers.
So just a few set of questions before we let you go. I want to talk to you also about India's AI mission as well. In the last budget, there was over 10,000 crore of corpus that was allocated to that. Could you give us a status check on the progress of that?
See, there are 7 verticals under the India AI mission. We've moved forward on almost all of them. The first vertical relates to, and the biggest one, relates to the creation of the AI compute facility. About 4,500 crores out of that budget is allotted to that. We've put out a bid and we've received responses, a fairly large number of responses for providing AI compute facility in the country. And those bids are being currently evaluated and it should be finalized in a matter of weeks. So once that is done, we will enable greater access to AI compute within the country, and that is a dynamic bid. I mean, there's a dynamic process by which we can keep adding capacity, and since technology is constantly changing, we can keep sort of updating the kind of compute which is being provided and the rates at which they're being provided. If the rates drop, then those rates will go down. So we've kept it dynamic so that every quarter we'll keep revisiting this.
Yes. So one final question before we let you go. This essentially is about, the first semiconductor chip. I remember Minister Vaishnav did say that the first chip is going to roll out from India in 2025. Are you sticking by those timelines?
Absolutely. In fact, to be very honest, I think experimentally the first chips have already been made. in the sense of both Micron and Tata from their pilot facilities have manufactured chips. Right? So to be honest, even in 2024, those chips have rolled out. The first actual production facility, I mean full-fledged production facility of Micron in Sanand should be in production sometime this year, in the later half of this year.
Okay, and so what is the cumulative level of investments that you're looking at in the semiconductor ecosystem, in this year?
No, the committed investments which companies have committed to make, the 5 companies, is totally about 1,20,000 crore plus.
That's part of the Semicon 1.
That is part of the Semicon 1. So now that is the committed investment. Some part of it has already taken place during during 2024, 23, 24. Some part is taking place currently in the current fiscal. More will happen in 25, 26.
How much are you expecting?
I mean, they have a cadence in terms of how much needs to be done. The Micron project will come on stream, then there will be expansions. They have 3 to 4 years, each of them, to invest. So it depends on a number of factors, the pace of investment.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, once
Thank
again
you
for joining us and taking the time out and speaking with ET Now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Startup Central, and 2 days into the new year, and quick commerce has already started making waves. Now, after disrupting delivery of essentials, the quick commerce revolution is now making bold inroads into the healthcare space as well. Now, Blinkit has launched a 10-minute ambulance service, while Big Basket or BB now is gearing up to deliver prescription drugs right straight to your doorstep. Now, Blinkit's ambulances, remember, will be equipped, as the company states, they will be equipped with essential life-saving equipment, and that includes oxygen cylinders, and each ambulance has a paramedic, an assistant, along with that a trained driver. In fact, this bold move even got the Prime Minister to tweet as well. But ladies and gentlemen, as these companies race to define, or rather redefine, convenience in critical sectors, it really does raise pressing questions about safety, about regulations, and about ethics in the e-delivery of medicines. Now, are these developments a step towards a healthcare revolution, or are we speeding into uncharted and risky territory? Well, to unravel this and to deep dive into the potential pitfalls and opportunities and the road ahead for a quick commerce in healthcare, we caught up with a whole host of experts to get their take on where things are headed in the quick commerce space. Take a look.
So I have a reason to believe that this, if they can optimize and standardize, there is a likelihood it will completely change the way in which the either terminal healthcare or the accident trauma related healthcare will be totally different. This is my opinion. I am pretty sure in a 5 years period, either Blinkit or some more Blinkits would come. And this industry needs a really solution, but anything delivered faster as a huge market. I never expected groceries and fashion will have such a approval from the society that people have started consuming it. But I have a reason to believe medicine as well as ambulance all will redefine healthcare, and all current monopolies and what you call as advantages of early bird all will get somewhere neutralized, because when it comes, the technology comes into picture, newer guys have more to gain than the what you call as legacy guys.
So I think overall we have reached that stage where we are ready to take off with much faster growth, and government will not be found wanting in encouraging our startups and supporting our startups. More and more investors are coming into play, both with domestic capital and foreign capital. Yes. As regards Blinkit doing ambulance service or medicines being delivered, my only submission would be that they have to make sure that they meet the law of the land, and whatever other legal requirements should be properly taken care of. No laws of the land should be broken.
All right, so the Union Commerce Minister over there stating that the legal requirements must be taken care of, as of course all of these quick commerce companies, rather some of these quick commerce companies are now getting into this completely new territory. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is clearly a defining moment for healthcare and quick commerce industries. The promise of speed is definitely enticing, but the risks demand caution. Well, on that note, it's time's up from us right here on Startup Central. Hope you like the show as much as we did putting it together for you. Goodbye and thanks very much for watching.